The cell was cold, damp, and smelled of rust and blood. Ethan stood in the center. His hands chained in front of him, his back straight, his eyes calm, around him. The other prisoners huddled in corners, their eyes wide with fear. Most of them were not human, their strange skin colors and extra limbs proof they were from far worlds. Some whispered in low voices, stealing glances at him like he was already dead. The heavy door at the far end groaned open. Metal boots clanged against the floor, each step slow and deliberate. Through the doorway stepped a giant figure, almost twice the height of a man. His armor was black and decorated with glowing red symbols. His face was partly hidden by a metal mask, but his eyes, yellow and sharp, glared like a predator's. This was Zarkesh, the alien warlord feared in 12 star systems, and beside him, chained with thick cables, came his pet. The creature was huge, covered in dark, spiked scales. 6 eyes glowed in the dim light, its mouth lined with teeth. Like knives, it gave a deep growl that shook the air. Every prisoner flinched and stepped back, some covering their ears, but Ethan didn't move. He just looked at the warlord and his beast, like a man watching a storm from behind glass. Zarkesh stopped in front of him, towering over the human. He tilted his head, studying Ethan the way a butcher studies meat. Then, with a slow, rumbling voice, he spoke. "Why aren't you trembling, human? One word from me, and my pet will devour you." The other prisoners froze, their eyes darting between Ethan and the beast. Some expected him to fall to his knees, beg for mercy, cry out for help. Instead, Ethan's lips curved into the faintest smile. He didn't speak. He didn't even blink. The beast stepped closer, its claws scraping the floor. The chain rattled loudly, the sound sharp in the silence. Its hot breath smelled like blood and iron. It lowered its head until its many eyes were level with Ethan's face. The warlord grinned under his mask, waiting for the scream, but Ethan's calm was like stone. He met the creature's gaze and didn't look away. His breathing stayed slow and steady. It was like he was looking into the eyes of an old friend, not a monster ready to eat him. Zarkesh's smile faltered just slightly. He had seen warriors, killers, and leaders break into sweat when standing before his pet. But this human, he didn't even seem to care. "Perhaps you don't understand, human," Zarkesh said, his tone sharper now. "One word, and you will be nothing but bones in the dirt." Still, Ethan said nothing. The silence stretched. The beast tilted its head, sniffing the air around Ethan. Then, to everyone's shock, it stopped growling. Its body relaxed. It even took a small step back, as if unsure. The other prisoners gasped. One alien whispered, "That's impossible. It obeys only Zarkesh." The guards shifted uncomfortably, their hands tightening on their weapons. Ethan finally spoke, his voice quiet but steady. "Looks like your pet isn't hungry today." It wasn't a joke, but the calm way he said it made it sound like one. Zarkesh eyes narrowed. He took a step closer, his shadow covering Ethan completely. "You think you're brave, human? No. You are a fool," he said. "I could crush you here and now, without the beast." Ethan met his stare. "Then why don't you?" he asked simply. The warlord's jaw tightened, for the first time in a long time. Zarkesh didn't know what to say. The beast let out a low sound, almost like a purr. It turned its head slightly, keeping its eyes on Ethan as if it had found something familiar in him. This was wrong. The beast never behaved like this. Zarkesh glanced at it, then back at the human. Something was happening here that he couldn't explain. Finally, Zarkesh turned and gave a sharp signal. The guards stepped forward, grabbing Ethan by the arms. "Take him to the holding pit," Zarkesh ordered. "We will see how long this fearlessness lasts," as the guards dragged him away. The beast gave one last deep growl. Not at Ethan, but at the guards. They hesitated, unsure if they should continue. But Zarkish barked another order, and they hurried. The heavy door slammed shut behind them in the darkness of the hall. Ethan allowed himself a small breath, not from fear, but from calculation. He knew now. The beast could be reached, and if he could win its trust, it might be the key to surviving this place. But he also knew Zarkish would not let this go. The warlord had seen something he didn't like in that cell. Not weakness, not fear, but the possibility that his greatest weapon might no longer be his. And that was far more dangerous than the beast itself. The holding pit was nothing more than a giant cage made of black iron bars. The floor was damp, covered in dirt and old bones. A dim light flickered overhead, swinging slightly with every vibration in the walls. Ethan stood inside, his hands still chained. He could hear distant roars echoing through the tunnels. The sound like thunder trapped underground from the shadows. At the far end, footsteps approached, slow and heavy. Then came the sound of claws dragging against metal. Every other prisoner in nearby cages went silent. They pressed themselves against the back walls, as far away as possible. They knew what was coming, and they wanted no part of it. The gate creaked open, and there it was, Zarkish's beast. The same one from before. Its massive body filled the entrance. Its 6 eyes glowing faintly in the dim light. Chains rattled as it stepped inside. The sound echoing across the pit. It moved low to the ground, its muscles tensing like a predator. Ready to pounce, up above, in the observation balcony, Zarkish leaned on the railing. Guards stood at his side, watching closely. Let's see if the human is still smiling, Zarkish said in a cold voice. One of the guards smirked. Won't be long now, my lord. The beast began to circle Ethan. Its claws scraped the floor, sending a sharp screech into the air. It sniffed, breathing out hot air that smelled of meat and blood. Ethan didn't move. He kept his eyes on the creature, his head turning slightly to follow it. He had learned long ago that with predators, sudden movements meant weakness. The beast stopped directly in front of him. It lowered its head, bringing its face inches from his. Its 6 eyes blinked slowly. One after another, a deep rumble built in its throat. Zarkish leaned forward, expecting the strike, but instead of lunging, the beast just stared at him. Ethan noticed something in its gaze. Not rage, not hunger. Something else, something. Curious, very slowly, he raised his chained hands. The guards tensed, ready to shoot if he tried anything. His fingers hovered just an inch from the beast's snout. For a moment, it seemed like it might bite, but then it sniffed his hand. The hot breath rushing over his skin. The rumbling in its chest softened. And then it took one step closer. The other prisoners gasped. One whispered, "It's choosing him." Up on the balcony, Zarkish's jaw tightened. "What is this? Why isn't it attacking?" he demanded. But no one could answer. The beast pressed its head lightly against Ethan's hand. It was heavy and warm, the scales rough under his touch. Ethan slowly moved his hand along its jawline, careful not to show fear. The creature closed its eyes for a second, almost like it was enjoying it. Zarkish slammed his fist on the railing. Enough. He roared. The beast's eyes snapped open, and it growled again, but this time, not at Ethan. It turned toward the balcony, its body tensing. Zarkish froze for half a second before hiding his surprise behind anger. "Take him to the beasts," Den Zarkish ordered sharply. "If they are so close, let's see if he can survive the night in there." The guards hesitated. They had seen what the beast did to anyone who entered its den. Even if it liked someone, one wrong move could still mean death. Chains rattled as they led Ethan through the tunnels. The beast followed without being pulled. Its eyes stayed locked on him like it was guarding him. When they reached the den, the guards shoved him inside and quickly locked the gate. The beast stepped in behind him, filling the space with its massive body. The den was darker, warmer, the air thick with the smell of earth and blood. Bones lay scattered across the floor, some still stained red. The walls were scratched and claw-marked. Signs of rage from past nights. The beast settled in the corner, its glowing eyes watching him closely. Ethan sat against the opposite wall, his chains resting on his knees. Neither moved for a long time, the silence broken only by the slow sound of breathing. Above them, unseen in the shadows, the female alien. Prisoner from earlier watched through a narrow grate. Her voice was a whisper only to herself. If the beast accepts him, then the trial will come. She backed away, disappearing into the darkness inside the den. Ethan closed his eyes for a moment. He was tired, but his mind was racing. He knew this was no ordinary creature. It was intelligent, maybe even more than people thought. If he could earn its trust completely, it might not just spare his life. It might fight for him, but that also meant one thing. If Zarkesh realized the beast was slipping from his control, he wouldn't stop at threats. He would try to kill Ethan before that bond could grow stronger. And in this place, Ethan knew the real danger wasn't the beast in the cage. It was the warlord, watching from above. Morning in the alien prison never came with sunlight. There were no windows, no fresh air, only the same dim lamps buzzing in the ceiling. Ethan sat in the corner of the beast's den, his back against the wall. The creature lay near him, breathing slow, its huge body curled like a giant serpent resting after a hunt. It had not attacked him all night. In fact, at one point, it had moved closer, lying between him and the den's entrance, almost like it was guarding him. When the gate screeched open, two guards stepped in cautiously. They held shock spears in their hands, their eyes darting between Ethan and the beast. One of them muttered, "Still alive." "Impossible," the other sneered. Maybe the beast was just saving him for breakfast. The beast growled low, not at Ethan, but at the guards. The sound made them freeze for a moment. Ethan noticed this. The beast's loyalty was already shifting. And that was dangerous for him, not because of the beast, but because of the one who owned it. They pulled Ethan out, keeping the shock spears close to his ribs. The beast let out a louder growl this time, taking a step forward until the chain pulled tight. One guard whispered nervously, "It's protecting him." The other shot him a warning glare to stay silent. They marched Ethan through the tunnels to the central yard. The place was filled with prisoners, dozens of species, all watching the human with curious eyes. Some whispered, pointing at him. Others stared in open disbelief. News had already spread. The human survived the night in the beast's den. From the far side of the yard, a group of tall, insect-like aliens approached. Their leader clicked his mandibles and circled Ethan slowly. "You're the one who made Zarkesh's beast obey." "Hey," he said in a raspy voice. Ethan didn't answer. "We've been here for years. We've seen many thrown to it." None returned. "Until you," the alien continued. His eyes narrowed. "Some will see you as hope. Others will see you as a challenge." Before Ethan could speak, another voice cut through the air. "Challenge? No. I see him as prey." A massive, horned alien shoved through the crowd. His forearms flexing, he towered over Ethan, his muscles coiled like thick cables under scarred skin. He smirked. "If the beast won't kill you, maybe I should." The prisoners stepped back, forming a loose circle around them. The guards didn't move to stop it. Fights here were common, and Zarkesh often enjoyed watching them. Ethan kept his voice calm. "You want to fight me because I didn't die? That's stupid." The horned aliens snarled and lunged forward. But before he could reach Ethan, a deafening roar shook the yard. All heads turned from the tunnel entrance. the beast appeared. Its chain rattled as it pushed past to struggling guards. It stomped into the circle, placing itself between Ethan and the horned alien. The horned alien froze, sweat breaking over his thick brow. No one had ever seen the beast leave its den for anyone, especially not for a prisoner. The crowd began whispering louder now. Asterisk, the beast chooses the human. Asterisk, maybe he's the one from the old prophecy. If that's true, Zarkish will kill him before it's too late. High above, on the balcony, Zarkish watched with unblinking eyes. His hand tightened on the railing. This was not a good sign. The human survival could no longer be brushed off as luck. He was becoming a symbol, and symbols in a prison full of enemies could grow into rebellions. Later, Ethan was shoved back into a smaller holding cell. This time with no other prisoners nearby. The female alien he'd seen before appeared at the bars, her silver eyes scanning him. "You are making enemies, human," she said softly. "They fear you. And the one who fears you most is Zarkesh." Ethan raised an eyebrow. "And you? Do you fear me?" She shook her head. "No, but I know what happens next. When the beast chooses a master, the trial of dominion begins." He frowned slightly. "What's that?" Her voice lowered. "A fight in the arena. Not just with the beast, but with all who claim to command it. Win and every creature bows to you. Lose and you die." She slipped away before the guards noticed she was there. Ethan leaned back against the wall, processing her words. He had no idea how to survive a trial like that, but he knew one thing: the beast was his only chance. And if Zarkesh was truly afraid of losing control of it, the warlord might try to force the trial sooner than anyone expected, from somewhere. Deep in the prison, the beast roared again. It was a sound that made the other prisoners shiver. But Ethan just sat there, his eyes narrowing, because he knew. The roar wasn't a threat. It was a warning, and it wasn't for him. Asterisk, the order came at dusk. 2 guards appeared at Ethan's cell, their faces grim. One rattled the bars and said, "Move." Warlord's orders. Ethan didn't ask where they were. Taking him, the glint in their eyes already told him. The walk through the tunnels was long and silent. The air smelled damp. The faint rumble of distant beasts echoing through the walls. They passed by prisoners who shrank away at the sight. Of him, some whispered. Others just stared. By now, everyone knew about the human who had survived the beast's den. And now, they all seemed to know what was coming next. The guards stopped before a wide, barred gate. Beyond it was not the den he had slept in before. This was something different. A cage big enough to hold 2 monsters at once. Ethan stepped inside, his chains clinking against the stone floor. The door slammed shut behind him with a heavy clang from the opposite end. A sound began slow. Heavy steps, claws scratching. On stone, then it emerged from the shadows. The beast, its 6 eyes glowing faintly in the dim light. But this time, there was something else. Another pair of eyes gleamed in the darkness. Lower to the ground, a second beast stepped forward. Smaller, younger, but still deadly. Its spines bristled as it caught Ethan's scent. Up above, on a narrow balcony, Zarkish watched with his arms folded. "Let's see if your new friend still protects you when it has competition," the warlord said, his voice dripping with malice. The older beast moved toward Ethan first. It stopped just in front of him, lowering its head. The younger one growled from behind, circling like a shadow in the dark. Ethan stood still, his eyes moving between them. He knew what Zarkish was doing. If the beasts fought each other, he could be caught in the middle, or worse. The younger one might see him as prey. The younger beast lunged without warning, its jaws snapping inches from Ethan's arm. Before Ethan could react, the older beast spun, blocking the attack. Its roar shook the walls. The younger one stumbled back, growling in defiance. The 2 creatures circled each other now, their muscles tense. Ethan backed toward the wall, giving them space, but his mind was racing. If they fought to the death, one might turn on him in the chaos, and if the older one lost, so would he. Suddenly, the younger beast lunged again. This time, Ethan stepped forward instead of retreating. His voice was low, steady, and commanding. "Stop," he said, not a shout, not a plea. Both beasts froze, their eyes snapping toward him. Even Zarkish leaned forward slightly. Frowning, Ethan moved between them slowly. He placed a hand on the older beast's jaw, then turned to the younger one, extending his other hand. The younger beast hesitated, its nostrils flaring. It sniffed his fingers, its growl fading into a low rumble. Ethan stayed perfectly still until it relaxed just enough to lower its head. Only then did he touch it gently, but with confidence, from above. A murmur spread among the guards. "He's controlling both," one whispered. Zarkish's eyes narrowed behind his mask. This was no longer a test. It was a problem. The rest of the night was tense but quiet. The two beasts lay on either side of Ethan, their bodies forming a living wall around him. The younger one kept shifting in its sleep, as if unsure whether to trust him. But every time it stirred, the older beast would rumble softly, keeping it calm. Ethan didn't sleep much. He knew this was a victory, but a dangerous one. The more the beasts trusted him, the more Zarkish would see him as a threat. And in a place like this, threats were erased quickly. At some point in the early hours, Ethan heard faint footsteps. Above, looking up, he saw a shadow in the narrow gap between the bars. It was the silver-eyed female prisoner again. Her voice was barely a whisper. "It's happening faster than I thought. The trial of Dominion will come soon." Ethan kept his voice low. "Then I need to be ready." She shook her head. "No one is ever ready." And just as silently as she came, she was gone. By the time the lamps flickered on, the guards returned. They looked uneasy as they opened the cage. The older beast rose to its feet, standing between Ethan and them. The younger one growled quietly. It was clear, if they tried to harm him, they would have to face both. Zarkesh appeared in the doorway, his presence filling the space like a shadow. "Enjoy your night, human?" he asked with false sweetness. Ethan met his gaze. "I slept better than you think," he replied. The warlord's eyes narrowed, but he said nothing more. As they led Ethan away, Zarkish stayed behind, staring at the two beasts for the first time. He wondered if he was losing control of more than just a pet. The clang of the prison alarm echoed through every tunnel. Prisoners were herded out of their cells by guards holding shock spears. The air was thick with tension, whispers rushing through the crowd like wind in dry grass. "The trial is here. The human is going to die today, or he will rule them all." Ethan walked in the center of a group of guards, his hands unchained for the first time. Not out of trust, but because in the trial, you needed both hands if you wanted to survive. Zarkish led the procession, his armor gleaming under the arena. Lights ahead, the warlord's voice boomed across the prison. "Today, we witness the trial of Dominion. All challengers, all beasts, all strength, in one fight. Only the victor commands." The arena was a massive pit of cracked stone, surrounded by high walls and stands packed with prisoners. Some cheered for blood, others watched in silence. At the far side, gates creaked open, and the first creatures stepped out. They were not as large as Zarkesh's main beast, but each one was dangerous in its own way. Claws like knives, teeth sharp enough to cut bone, bodies built for killing. Ethan was pushed into the center. The crowd roared, the sound shaking the ground beneath his feet. From another gate, the older beast emerged, its 6 glowing eyes scanning the arena until they landed on him. It rumbled low in its throat and moved to his side. The prisoners gasped. The bond was real. Zarkesh's jaw tightened behind his mask. But this trial was not about one beast. The The side gates opened again. 2 more beasts came out, one with thick, armor-like plates, the other long and snake-like. They hissed and roared, circling the arena. Then the final gate opened. The younger beast appeared, stepping cautiously into the light. Its eyes darted between Ethan and the other creatures. Unsure where to stand, the horned alien from days before jumped down from the stands, landing with a heavy thud. "If the human wins, I will kneel," he shouted. "But if he loses, I will eat his heart." Other warriors followed, insect-like fighters, scaled gladiators, and even one massive 4-armed brute. The trial was more than a fight against beasts. It was a fight against anyone who dared claim dominance. The gong rang, chaos exploded. Instantly, the horned alien charged at Ethan. But the older beast intercepted, ramming into him with bone-cracking force. The snake-like creature darted toward Ethan from behind. He spun just in time. Ducking under its strike and grabbing one of the fallen spears from the dirt, it hissed. Striking again, Ethan jabbed the spear toward its eyes, forcing it to retreat, across the arena. The younger beast faced the armored monster. It was losing ground. Its lighter frame, no match for the heavy plates. Ethan ran toward them, shouting, "Here with me." The younger beast turned, hearing his voice. For the first time, it moved toward him willingly. Together, they flanked the armored monster, Ethan distracting from the front, while the younger beast leaped at its side. Biting into the softer flesh between plates, the crowd roared louder now. This was no random fight. They were watching something impossible. A human commanding more than one beast. Even the other fighters began to hesitate, unsure whether to strike at him or avoid becoming his next target. Zarkish watched from above, his hands tightening into fists. This was going wrong. The trial was meant to break the human instead. It was showing everyone that he could win. The horned alien returned, blood dripping from a cut above his brow. "This isn't over, human," he shouted. He lunged again, but this time Ethan didn't block. The older beast slammed into the alien's side, throwing him across the arena like a rag doll. The impact knocked the wind out of him. The prisoners in the stands roared in shock and excitement. One by one, the other fighters fell or retreated. The snake-like creature lay unconscious. The armored monster limped away, bleeding. Only the beasts and Ethan remained standing. They formed a loose circle around him. The older beast on one side, the younger on the other. The crowd began chanting, "Master of Beasts, Master of Beasts." Zarkish raised a hand, silencing the noise. "Enough," he said, his voice cutting through the air like a blade. "This trial is over." For now, he stepped down into the arena, his eyes locked on Ethan. "You may have survived today, human, but this ends with me." Ethan stood his ground. "Q. Then you'd better bring something stronger than your pets," he replied. The crowd erupted. Again, the sound bouncing off the stone walls. Zarkish turned away, but his mind was already racing. If the beasts had truly chosen Ethan, then killing him wouldn't just be a victory, it would have to be a spectacle. Because after today, Ethan wasn't just another prisoner, he was a symbol. And symbols were far more dangerous than any weapon. The arena was silent now. The beasts had been led away. The prisoners forced back to their cells. Only Zarkish remained in the center. Staring at the dust where Ethan had stood, his hands were tight fists, his armor creaking with the pressure. The trial had not gone as planned. Instead of fear, the human had earned loyalty not only from the older beast, but from the younger one as well. Worse, the crowd had seen it. They had seen beasts bow to a man. Zarkish knew what that meant in a place like this. It meant whispers, and whispers became hope. Hope became rebellion, back in his private chamber. Zarkish slammed his fist against the wall. One of his advisors, a thin, pale alien with too many eyes, stepped forward carefully. "My lord, the human. He is dangerous now." Zarkesh's voice was low but sharp. "Dangerous. He is poison. If I let him live another day, my own soldiers will start looking at him like a leader." The advisor's eyes blinked one after another. "Then end him, my lord." Zarkesh turned slowly, his mask hiding his expression. "Not yet. No. If I kill him now, they will say I feared him. I must break him first." In front of all of them, meanwhile, Ethan sat in his cell. The guards had given him no food since the trial. Only water. He didn't care. His mind was on the beasts. He didn't know where they had been taken after the fight. And that worried him more than Zarkesh's threats. He knew the warlord would try something soon, something that would force a choice between his life. And theirs, that night, the silver-eyed female appeared again. She crouched near the bars, her voice barely a whisper. "They're moving the beasts tomorrow." Ethan frowned. "Moving them where?" She glanced over her shoulder to the pit of chains. A place where even beasts die slowly. Ethan's jaw tightened. "Why?" She looked back at him, her eyes narrowing. "Because Zarkesh wants you to come for them. So he can finish you." Ethan leaned forward. "Then I'll go," he said simply. The alien woman shook her head. "You don't understand. The pit of chains is not a cage. It's a trap. The floor is lined with barbed hooks. The air is filled with gas that makes creatures turn mad. No one comes back." Ethan's voice didn't waver. "I will, the next day." The prison yard was unusually quiet. No shouts. No fights, only the heavy sound of boots marching from his balcony. Zarkesh addressed the prisoners. "Today, the human will learn that beasts do not choose their master. I do." He gave a signal, and the gates to the pit of chains groaned. "Open." The smell hit first, a mix of rust, blood, and something sharp in the air. Ethan was pushed forward by two guards. Below, he saw the older beast chained to a spiked post, its scales cut and bleeding. The younger beast was nearby. Thrashing violently against its restraints, the gas in the air made their eyes wild. Their growls deeper, Ethan's heart pounded. Zarkesh's voice boomed over the yard. "Go on, human. If they are truly yours, calm them. If not, die with them." The guards shoved him down the ramp. The gas burned his throat and made his vision blur. The younger beast lunged toward him, the chain snapping it back just inches away. The older one growled, but it was confused, torn between recognition and madness. Ethan moved slowly, speaking in that same calm tone he had used before. "It's me. Easy. You know me." The younger beast snapped at him again, its teeth clashing just short of his arm. He didn't retreat. Instead, he dropped to one knee. Lowering himself to appear smaller, he kept talking. "Steady. I'm not your enemy. Look at me. Remember the trial?" The older beast blinked, its growl fading just a little. It took one slow step forward, the chains scraping against the hook-lined floor. Then another step. Finally, it reached him, pressing its massive head against his shoulder. The younger beast froze, breathing hard. It looked between Ethan and the older one. Slowly, it lowered its head too, from above. The crowd murmured in disbelief. Zarkesh's mask hid his fury. He had made the gas stronger than usual, the hooks sharper, the chains tighter, and yet the human had walked through it all and tamed them again. Ethan stood now, one hand on each beast. He looked up at the balcony. "Is this what you wanted?" "Zarkesh," he called. The warlord didn't answer, not because he had no words, but because he was already planning the final move, a move that would not just kill Ethan, it would erase him completely. The pit of chains was silent now. Ethan stood between the two beasts, his hands resting on their rough scales. The crowd above whispered in shock. They had seen the impossible happen not once, But again, Zarkish stood at the balcony, unmoving. Inside, his anger burned like fire. He had given the human every chance to fail. Gas that turned beasts mad, hooks that tore flesh, chains that cut deep. But instead of dying, Ethan had turned the trial into a display of dominance. And now, the beasts stood with him, not against him. Zarkish lifted his hand. Kea began to move. But this time, it wasn't to drag Ethan away. It was to prepare the arena for something else, something bigger. The gates at the far end of the pit began to rise. The grinding of metal echoed like thunder. From the darkness beyond, a low, deep growl rumbled. The air seemed to grow heavier. The creature that stepped out made even the older beast take a step back. It was massive. Taller than the arena walls, its body covered in jagged armor plates. Its eyes glowed like molten gold. And its breath steamed in the cold air. The crowd fell into silence. Even the other prisoners watching from the shadows looked afraid. "Meet my first pet," Zarkish called down. "The one I tamed before any of you were born." He leaned over the balcony, his voice sharp. "If you can control this human, you can control me. But if not, it'll be nothing but a memory." The massive beast let out a roar so loud it rattled the chains in the pit. Dust fell from the ceiling. The two beasts at Ethan's side growled back, but their bodies were tense. They knew this predator, and they feared it. Ethan's mind raced. This wasn't just another test. Zarkish wasn't trying to humiliate him anymore. This was an execution dressed as a challenge. The warlord wanted him dead in a way no one could call cowardly. The giant beast charged. Its claws tore into the ground, sending up chunks of stone. Ethan moved quickly, signaling the younger beast to flank and the older to block. They obeyed without hesitation. The older beast rammed into the giant's leg. Slowing it for a heartbeat, the younger darted for its side, snapping at the softer joints, but the giant was too strong with one swing of its tail. It sent the younger beast crashing into the wall. The crowd gasped as the creature struggled to get up. Ethan ran to it, placing a hand on its head. "Stay with me," he whispered. The younger beast's breathing steadied. It rose again, slower. This time, but still willing to fight, Zarkish watched closely. He could see it now. This wasn't luck. The human wasn't just surviving by chance. He was leading them, commanding them like no other. The fight raged on. Ethan moved like a conductor in a deadly orchestra. His beast struck when he pointed, retreated when he called. Every time the giant beast roared, he answered with a command that kept them moving. The crowd, once silent, began to chant again. "Master of beasts! Master of beasts!" The chant grew louder. Zarkish's fingers tightened on the railing until the metal bent under his grip. This had gone too far if the human killed his first pet. There would be no saving his authority. With a desperate signal, he ordered the guards to open the emergency gate. But instead of reinforcements, the crowd saw something else. Dozens of smaller beasts, long thought dead, poured into the pit. They were wild, untrained, snapping at anything in reach. The crowd erupted in chaos. Prisoners backed away from the rails. Even the giant beast hesitated at the sight of them. Ethan didn't have time to think. He acted. He stepped forward between the chaos and his beasts. He shouted, loud and sharp, not in his own language, but in the guttural growl he had learned. From them, the sound cut through the air. The smaller beasts froze mid-charge, their heads tilting. Then, one by one, they lowered themselves to the ground. A ripple of submission moved through the pit. Zarkish's eyes widened behind his mask. This wasn't possible. No one could tame that many creatures at once. But here? It was the proof in front of him, the giant beast. Seeing the others bow, finally lowered its head too. The arena was silent again. Ethan stood in the center, surrounded by kneeling beasts of every size. He looked up at Zarkish. "It's over," he said simply. The warlord didn't answer, not because he accepted defeat, but because he understood. Something deadly. If he fought now, he would lose everything if he surrendered. The human would own the prison, so he did the only thing left. He turned and walked away. The crowd roared, not for him, but for Ethan. As the beasts rose and followed the human out of the pit, one thought burned in every prisoner's mind. The warlord's rule had ended without a single blade drawn, and the human had done it with nothing but will. From that day on, no one called him prisoner. They called him Master of Beasts.